What's up with y'all boys and girls, man? Hey, welcome back to the NFL show. Got Mitch and Big Al McMorty with me here this week, per usual. We're going to cook up every single game this week in the NFL. Money Man Mitch, how you doing today, sir?
Hanging in there, just ready for another week of NFL football. It's just I've improved every single week and looking to sweep the board this time around.
Let's do it. Big Al, how you doing today, sir?
Doing well, no complaints. Yeah, it's looks to be a nice card this week in the NFL, and haven't looked at college football yet. I'll probably do that tonight, but yeah, it's been going pretty good, so no complaints on my end.
Yes, sir. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, y'all know what we do here on this show. Let's make some money this week. Let's continue to kick the crap out of the books. Let's hop right into this week's NFL action. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Thursday Night Football. Got division battle, NFC South. We got the Atlanta Falcons at home at the crib with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming in. Atlanta, 1.5-point favorites currently. Mitch, NFC South battle. These games always seem to be close. The line seems to indicate that. How you feeling here?
You know, it's a divisional matchup. On a short week for the Bucs coming in a surprising 3-1, the Falcons 2-2. Chick-fil-A is open in Atlanta, so this is a special game Thursday night as opposed to the normal Sundays. The thing is the Falcons, we've seen them in these night games, and they came through in the clutch pretty good there against the Eagles. I think this game, the total just seems inviting here. It was 43.5. It's creeping up a little bit higher, but we don't have anything really to speak of here as far as defensive numbers from either of these teams that jump off the chart at all. The Falcons' yards per play at 5 yards per play against is fourth best in the NFL. But really, two kind of mundane offenses, two kind of mundane defenses in a divisional battle. I'm just going to roll with the over.
Points. Mitch thinks we get up and over the total here in this one. Big Guy McMorty, how you feeling, sir?
Well, this is Atlanta's third straight home game, and perhaps the third time will be the charm. Atlanta did not cover the spread 2 games back versus the Chiefs. They didn't cover the spread last week at home versus New Orleans. But home teams playing their third straight home game off back-to-back point spread losses, they've gone 65-42 ATS. On the Tampa Bay side of things, they're coming in off a huge blowout win over the Philadelphia Eagles. That was a rematch of a playoff game from the previous season. You take a look at how road underdogs or pick'em teams do off 14-point or greater upset wins. They don't do very well. They're 111 and 166 ATS. So I'm going to lay the points with the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm taking Tampa Bay here. I think Tampa Bay is the better football team, and I think the line kind of indicates that as well. If Atlanta was truly the better football team, I feel like the line would be 3. For Atlanta. But Tampa was the better team last year. I just believe they're the better team this year. This was, again, a playoff team a year ago. They just beat last week the team they beat in the playoffs again last week. Through 4 games, I've seen 3 really good games from Tampa and 1 stinker. Against a division opponent, I don't think I see that stinker. Atlanta pulled off one last week, Younghoe Koo, at the buzzer. I don't know if they pull this one out. It's still primetime Kirk Cousins for as far as I'm concerned. So give me Atlanta. Give me Tampa Bay. I think they're the better team. I think they beat up on Atlanta on the road. We head to London. First London game of the year. Early start time. We love these. We'll be on the show as the time of this game's going on. But we got the Jets off their terrible performance last week against the best team in football, the Minnesota Vikings. Big Al, how you feeling on this game?
Yeah, I'm going to look at the Jets side here. The Jets were upset last week, 10-9 by the Denver Broncos. They were a huge favorite in that game. But off that upset loss, take a look at how Aaron Rodgers, if I can even say the word, Aaron Rodgers' teams have done in his career when coming off a Suat's loss. They've done really well with him, behind center. They've gone 58-29 ATS, including 10-3 ATS as an underdog. Rodgers' teams have also gone 56-35 ATS in his starts versus opponents off a Suat's win. So I like New York in the bounce back spot.
Bounce back spot for the Jets, says Big Al McMorty. And that's probably the way I would lean in this game as well. This is not a game I'm rushing to bet. I'm not in a complete rush to fade Minnesota, but this is the NFL. It stands for not for long. And I think the Minnesota Vikings are due for a slight regression. And I think the Jets, they're probably exactly who we think they are. You know, not as good as some people think, but not nearly as bad as some people think. They're just a decent, probably first-round exit playoff team is kind of who I think they are. Bad week last week, but I'm expecting a bounce-back performance here from them. I'm taking the more veteran team this week on this road trip across the pond. You know, taking guys and, you know, I just think that the Jets are a more veteran group than at the key positions than Minnesota is. So just a weird spot for Minnesota now having to go across the pond after being as hot as they are. This is probably their cooling off point. So it's kind of just a sell high point for me on Minnesota and a buy low spot on the Jets. I'm probably going to take New York straight up on the money line over in London. Mitch, how you feel?
Yeah, the Jets are really terrible this season, and Aaron Rodgers in pure regression mode. Father Time has caught up with him, and the year off just looks like not a year of rest, but a year of rust. He looks absolutely terrible. If it's anybody else but Aaron Rodgers, he's benched last week, losing at home outright as 8-point favorites against the Denver Broncos. Just plain sad. I mean, of course, thankfully we had the Broncos and I bet a money line personally. But the thing is that, you know, we're going to continue to fade the Jets because they are the New York Jets. And it's like you can dress them up. You can slap some lipstick on the pig. You can throw some really good players in there, some great draft choices. They've had a bunch. But at the end of the day, they're the New York Jets, Jets, man. And Sam Darnold, he is going to be playing with a massive chip on his shoulder in this game. And he is the first, you know, MVP of the year, first month MVP, whatever you want to call it, the number one rated QB in the NFL. The Minnesota run defense has been off the chain, second best in the NFL, yards rushing against, rushing attempts. The pass defense, not as good, but because the Vikings have been playing with a huge lead every game, so every team has been forced to, you know, throw the ball on them. And meanwhile, the Jets defense, it's the opposite story. Their pass defense is really, really good. Their rush defense continues to just get run over every single game. Aaron Rodgers was forced out of the pocket an awful lot last week in that Denver game. And we saw him on the horse. And by the fourth quarter, he was limping noticeably. I think he's in real trouble. I don't think he makes the season, to be honest with you. I'm going to take the Vikings in this one. I doubt Rodgers finishes the game.
We move on to Sunday's action. Hey, we got another division battle here. Both teams really need this one. We got the Baltimore Ravens out on the road facing the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals, they bounced back last week and finally got their first win of the season. They're 2.5-point dogs at home in this one. I'm going to take Cincinnati. I'm probably going to take them straight up on the money line. Cincinnati, this is who they are. They start the season slow, and as the season progresses, the light starts to cut on. They start to get better, and they start to play really great football. The Ravens, shout out to them. Great win last week on primetime. Hell of a win. I had them. I thought that they would dominate in the style fashion that they did, and they did. But one thing about the Cincinnati Bengals, another thing that I've observed is they always get up for the big games. They just always seem to do. And at home, at the crib, basically back up against the wall, as dogs, that's where I want to be. Offensively, Cincinnati has been exactly who I think we think they are. Last week they looked good. The week before they looked good. Defensively is where the Bengals have had their issues. They started to look better last week. I get it. It was the Panthers. But I'm going to trust Cincinnati in this one, back up against the wall, at home, at the crib. They usually show up in these big games. I think the Ravens did take a slight step back from what they were a year ago, and off the big dominating win on primetime football, I think it sets up as a great spot to fade them. Give me Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, and Jamar Chase in the Cincinnati Bengals. Mitch, how you feeling?
Ravens swept the Bengals last year, and it was rare that's happened, but I think we might be in for the same thing again. Ravens lot I've been hearing about possible landing spot for Devontae Adams, and it just kind of fits in with this guy's just really, really well. He can talk about whoever quarterback wants to play with, but believe me, he gets traded to the Ravens. He's not going to really be complaining much about that. The thing is that the Ravens just the number one defense against the run in the NFL, and they're also the number one offense at running the football in the NFL. So, to me, it just comes down to that easy. How do you win games in the NFL? You run the football and play defense, and the Ravens do that extremely well. I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one. The Bengals just seem to be missing a screw this year.
Fair. Big Al, how you feeling here?
I like the underdog. I'm always going to like the underdog when the Cincinnati Bengals, are getting this amount of points. Currently getting 2.5. And when the Bengals are getting 2.5 or more points, they're 15-2 ATS, including a perfect 10-0 ATS versus an opponent off a straight up win. So that bodes well for Baltimore. And then you also take a look at how underdogs do in AFC North division games. They've gone 47-30 ATS. I also want to go against Baltimore off its impressive blowout win over the Buffalo Bills last Sunday night. They won that ball game 35-10. But the Ravens, they're a terrible 10-23 ATS on the road off a win by more than 18. I like this situation here for Cincinnati. I'm going to grab the points.
Next game up, we head down to Florida, where the Jacksonville Jaguars are looking for their first win of the season. They're favored to get it. They're laying 3 on Indianapolis. Mitch, do they get this win? And do you feel comfortable laying points with the Jacksonville Jaguars at this point?
I really don't love this game all that much. This just looks, the thing is you look at the game and you just think under, which means it's probably an over, just the way the NFL goes. The Jags defense has been pretty terrible, especially against the pass. Overall, giving up 380 yards per game. It's 30th in the NFL. And the Colts, 32nd in the NFL in defense. So 31st against the run. 27th against the pass. So what you have here are 2 bad defenses, 2 not so great offenses, but bad defenses can make bad offenses look good. I'm just going to roll with the over here.
Big Al McMorty, how you feeling?
Well, the key for me in this game is that Jacksonville has started the season 0-4, and I generally like playing on winless teams, until they get their first win. They're going to fight like a bastard to try to get into the win column. And when you take a look at how winless teams do at game 5 forward, if they're playing a division opponent, they've done really well. They've gone 83-59 ATS. So I'm going to lay the 3 points with the Jags.
I'm taking the Colts, even with Joe Flacco in the backup. There's no way I can lay points with this Jacksonville team. This team is a team that's been free falling, not only this season, but again, like I said last week, this dates back to half of the season last year. Jacksonville had the best record in the NFL through half the season last year. And since then, they haven't won a football game. Like, this team is free falling, and I don't like it. And that's not a team I can put my money behind. If they were a dog in this game, you might be able to talk me into it. But laying points with them, I'm sorry. I just cannot do it. So grabbing points with Indianapolis is the way I got to go here in this one. Next game up, another division battle. We got the Miami Dolphins up in Foxborough, where the Patriots are actually favored in this game. They're favored by a point. Big Al McMorty, do the Patriots get it done?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking back to Miami's game this past Monday night against Tennessee. I had the over in that game, and that was one of the luckiest wins you're ever going to have. Did you guys happen to watch the end of that game?
I did. So, as a former Cowboys fan, one of our biggest knocks on Tony Pollard was he never could get into the end zone, basically on those style plays. And, boy, did he get in there on that one.
Now, can you explain to me this new kicking rule with the punts and the landing zone and all that stuff? Because, I mean, I was,
It's insane. So, basically, You have to declare the onside kick, and it has to land within the 48-yard line. And that ball was 2 yards outside of it, which becomes a personal foul on the kicker, which then makes it half the distance to
Right.
the goal
Yeah.
from where the kick was.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was classic.
crazy.
So Tennessee gets set up on the 10-yard line, and all they have to do is get a field goal or touchdown to send it over the total.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, I mean, if you had the under in the game, you probably have jumped off a building by now. But, hey, if you had the over like me, it was fun. Anyway, the Dolphins, they were embarrassed in that game. They, final score 31-12. They were a 2.5-point home favorite going into the game. So off that debacle, I'm actually going to take Miami to bounce back at New England. And when you look at how teams do coming off Monday Night Football losses by more than 17, they've gone 53-33 ATS when installed as an underdog in their next game, including 10-1 ATS if they were off an upset loss in that Monday night blowout loss. So I like this spot here for the fish, and I'm going to take the 1 point.
I don't know what to think about this Miami team. The reason I say that is I'm not the biggest Tua fan. I don't think Tua's all that good. But, man, this team without him has been terrible. So, is Tua better than I give him credit for? Or what? Or is Mike McDaniel, as Mitch is going to explain to you guys in a second, just that bad of a coach? The Titans were not good, bro. The Titans are not a good football team. The Titans had been beating themselves all year. And to allow Tennessee to come into your building on primetime football and beat you up in that manner was quite disgusting and, really concerning for me for Miami. This New England team, I think, is going to have that same formula. We're just going to run the football, try to play good defense, and limit what you guys are going to do. We're starting to see frustrations on that Miami sideline. Hey, I'm not overcomplicating this one. I think New England is favored for a reason. It's short, sweet, simple. And I think come Sunday, the betting public still is going to want to take Miami. Nobody's going to really want to bet New England. I think we're probably going to be getting some value. This line may do some. It may be a pick 'em come Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised if it's that. I'm taking the Patriots. I think they win this game. I'm done with Miami. Mitch, do you echo those same sentiments?
Tua is far better quarterback than you give him credit for. He has the worst coach in the NFL. How come under Nick Saban they talk about him like he was going to be the number 1 overall pick until he was injured, right? And then he goes under the exact opposite head coach, right? You have the non-analytics traditional football coach, and then you have the analytics genius, right? Football coach. And how come the tough guy who makes everybody accountable to him and is a real football coach, and the guy who's just the pushover get totally different results out of everybody on the roster? Now, McDaniel's a joke. I mean, he's just got to be. He is the worst coach that the Dolphins have had in probably forever. He could be the worst coach they've ever had. And the thing is that the team is certainly playing like it. With that being said, the Patriots could be the worst team in the league this year. I mean, I understand there are teams that have worse records than them, and, the Jaguars are one of them. But I'd take the Jaguars and lay a touchdown against the Patriots right now. This Patriots team, I mean, basically they're trying to figure out who their running back is now. It's like, a couple of years ago, running back didn't even matter. Now quarterbacks are really not putting up the type of numbers that they were a few years ago. But I think, back to the Tua thing, and we'll put it to rest. If he's quarterback of the 49ers last year, they win the Super Bowl. I mean, it really is that difference. And, he's dinking and dunking. He's handing off to running backs. He's, then opening up the deep passing game. He throws a very good deep ball. The 49ers would have won the Super Bowl with him as their quarterback. And the thing is that, the Patriots, probably a better coach team, in this situation, but they don't have any talent on this team at all. Jacoby Brissett is terrible. And the thing is that he's so bad that, their number 1 overall draft choice can't even get the field to even try. That's how bad he is. Drake May, that's how horrible that pick was, is that as bad as Brissett has been, they're not even talking about him even getting an opportunity. So I think the Dolphins snap off the snide in this one. Only basically, I think this is going to be a lousy, ugly game. I'm going to take the Dolphins.
We head to Washington, where the Washington Commanders are one of the hottest teams in the league. Hey, they beat the brakes off the Cardinals last week. Mitch, they're laying 3 and some juice here on the Cleveland Browns. Is this a good sell high point, or do they continue to
Well,
stay as one of the hottest teams in the league?
well, the thing is, the Commanders really, in that late time slot last week, went into Arizona, just busted up the Cardinals. It was over before it started, and of course, the Commanders got the big news that Marcus Mariota is off the IL and back in with the big club. It's of course going to just bring up the whole locker room, the energy in the whole locker room. But I think that in this particular case, the Browns have been absolutely terrible, and usually, well, when teams have been this bad, it's usually time to jump on board. I think for the Browns, the running game has certainly been the issue here. We can say how bad Deshaun Watson is, and yeah, he is that bad. He absolutely stinks. But I think in this particular case, we probably see the good Deshaun Watson, who's just good enough against the Commanders team that I don't feel like laying the hook with them at that. I don't like the 3.5. I think the Browns could win the game outright, but I really don't like the 3.5.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Big Guy McMorty, how you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have been more wrong last week. I had Arizona, against Washington, and
Dang,
that was. Did you have them too, Jay?
I did.
Yeah. And I had Cleveland. They were a 2.5-point road favorite at Las Vegas, so I missed on both of these teams last week. But I like Cleveland here to bounce back. I think it's a really good reversal game. You take a look at how underdogs off upset losses do when they're playing an opponent off back-to-back upset wins. They've cashed 60% going back to 1980, so that's the situation here. And then Washington long-term, they've been terrible as a home favorite versus opponents that don't have a winning record. Washington's 31-72 ATS, its last 103. So like Mitch, I'm not, comfortable laying this big of a number with the Commanders. I'm going to grab the points with Cleveland.
Sweep it, fellas, because I'm joining you on Cleveland in this one. Shout out to the Commanders. I know Mitch earlier in the show said that Sam Darnold is the first half MVP. I think Jaden Daniels has a really good argument for that as well. But I'm going to sell high on the Commanders in this spot. Just a season ago, the Cleveland Browns were the best defense in the league. I don't think they're that this season, but I do think we see some of those signs and flashes this week against a rookie quarterback, back up against the wall. This is a style game, I want to be on the Cleveland Browns. I know they looked terrible last week against the Raiders, another team who, has a lot of turmoil going on. We'll talk about them later. But it's just a nice sell high point for me on Washington, who's, been playing out of their minds for 3 weeks, and a good buy low spot on Cleveland, who a lot of people maybe have sold their stock on. So, especially if I'm getting the hook, which I think we will get, and if you do your line shopping, you should be able to get the 3 and the hook currently on the Browns. That's where I want to be. Next game up, got the Houston Texans at home at the crib with the Buffalo Bills coming into town. Buffalo lost their first game of the year last week, and C.J. Stroud and the Texans were able to complete the 2-minute drill and go down and beat the Jags. Hey, Big Guy McMorty, how you feeling about this game?
I think this is a tough game for me. I really don't want to go against either of these two teams. You got Buffalo coming into this game off a 35-10 loss at Baltimore. And then Houston comes in off 4 straight ATS losses. So I think both are in situations where they can bounce back. So rather than, focusing on the side, I'm going to look at the over-under instead. And the Texans come into this game off 3 straight unders. So, as is my want, I'm going to look at this game over the total. Houston is 21-8 over, following 3 straight unders. So we're going to look for a high-scoring game and take it over the 47.
Just based on these two teams on the field, I'm expecting a higher paced game as well. I lean towards that over with Big Al McMorty as well. This Buffalo defense, there's some holes there. I thought they benefited from a light schedule to start their season. And last week when they were really tested against a good football team, we saw their defense have issues. And I think they'll definitely have issues on the road here against another really solid offense, especially if Joe Mixon's back in the fold here for Houston. I'm taking the Houston Texans, though. I just think man for man, player for player, roster for roster, the Texans are the better football team. And I think the gap at quarterback is closer than many may think. I do think Josh Allen is the better quarterback currently, but I think that's probably the only edge I would give Buffalo on the whole team. Von Miller's out. We just saw him get suspended. I think the head coaching edge goes to Houston. They're at home. I think I know Buffalo's in a really good, buy low spot off a terrible blowout loss last week, but the Texans, they're not going to not cover all season long. They're going to get them a cover in eventually, and I think this is the one, especially them being a home dog. Sign me up on the better team, in my opinion, the Houston Texans. Mitch, how you feeling?
Yeah, I don't agree with the man-for-man, player-for-player. I think the Bills are the better man-for-man, player-for-player team, but I think that the numbers tell me here that the Texans have some big edges in this particular game. Number one, when you get two really good teams, you got to look, generally they're decided by who makes the least amount of mistakes. And in this game, the Bills set up to make a lot more mistakes than the Texans do. I've been, saying the Texans are the most overrated team in the NFL from day one, and I still believe that. But the issues that we have here is we have Josh Allen, who kind of has been playing over his head, but the passing numbers show that it's been a sloppy over his head. I mean, the thing is, completions per game and all these other numbers, just way up there, in the high 20s. And, even in completion percentage, 9th best in the NFL, but he's up against the number one completion percentage against defense. He's playing against, one of the toughest pass defenses out there, 5th best in passing yards allowed for the Texans. This is a very tough defense from top to bottom. They're not going to make a lot of mistakes. Yeah, they're going to get beat at times. That's the NFL. Players are going to beat other players, and, guys you wouldn't think could beat other guys are going to beat other guys. I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, these guys are all the top of their game, but they're not going to beat themselves. And I think that's the big issue here. When you look at the Bills defense, giving up 156.5 rushing yards per game, that's 30th in the NFL, and completion percentage against 12th best, but the problem here is that Stroud's numbers aren't all that bad. And generally passing across the board, number 2 in passing yards per game for the Texans. And I think, like I said, I just think they make the less mistakes at home, and I think that's good enough. I'm going to take the Texans.
Next game up, we got the Chicago Bears at home at the crib, laying over a field goal, laying 4 points in this one. They got a win and cover last week. I was on the other side. I had to look myself in the mirror and just admit I'm a Bears hater. Short, sweet, simple. And I'm not stopping being a Bears hater. I'm fading them this week. It's just what it comes down to. I'm taking the Carolina Panthers plus the points. Mitch, I know they're on the do not bet list. I know they're there. But with Andy Dalton in the fold, they've had a little life. I know they didn't cover last week against Cincinnati, but Cincinnati desperately needed that game. I don't trust the Bears laying over a field goal. I'm sorry. I just don't. If this game was 2.5, you might get me on Chicago. But expecting this team to basically win over a possession, I just don't see it. In my mind, this game comes down, Bears win 17-14. It's how I see this game playing out. So I'm playing a point spread game, and that point spread game puts me on probably the worst team in the league, the Carolina Panthers. But they've shown some life offensively, and I think they can do enough in this one to at least keep it semi-competitive. I'm grabbing the points. Mitch, how you feel?
Yeah, I'm on the Panthers as well. I just think that the points is too good to pass up. I got a lot of heat in my most overrated players in sports video I did with Caleb Williams in there, and I'm sticking to it, man. He's way overrated. Him and Brock Purdy, I mean, the two of them. He's the last player drafted in the draft. It's like, yeah, because the draft is only 7 rounds now. A few years ago, that was a middle round draft choice is what he really was. The thing is that, we saw the Panthers, even in their loss last week, start to get the running game going. Chuba Hubbard getting over 100 yards in that game and a touchdown, 104 yards on 18 carries. And that's what they need. They need to get the running game going and keep that defense off the field, because the defense isn't bad, but it's like you leave any defense on the field for 42 minutes a game, they're going to get violated. And that's what's happened to the Panthers. I think this game is going to be closer than people think, and I think the Panthers have a chance to win it. My guess is we will see some defensive scores from possibly both teams. I wonder what the prop is on that. I mean, that's one of those prop parlays that pays gigantic. 2 defensive scores in that game. I think we'll get it.
I'm upset. We're supposed to really be getting the last year's number 1 quarterback versus this year's number 1 quarterback, but one of them's terrible.
They're both ass.
Both are terrible.
They're both terrible.
Big Al, how you feeling here? Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to make it a clean sweep. Great minds think alike. I mean, Carolina's offense was putrid the first 2 weeks. They scored a total of 13 points. In the last 2 weeks, they've scored 60. So that's what a change in quarterback can do for a team. This is a really good situation to go against Chicago. Chicago's never been any good, with success. Chicago is 43-64 ATS off a straight-up and ATS win when they were playing an opponent off a straight-up and ATS loss. So I want to fade Chicago here. I'm going to grab the points with you guys. I'm taking Carolina.
We got the Denver Broncos at home at the crib with the Las Vegas Raiders coming into town. Denver, slowly but surely, started to build a little momentum. They started off 0-2, now stacked back-to-back wins. That now has them installed as a favorite here, Mitch. Are you buying the Bo Nix, Sean Payton hype? How you feeling?
Well, I was on the Broncos last week, and they did me well, but I'm not so sure I'm ready to jump back on board. Seems to be a nice buy low spot on the Raiders. I liked the Raiders a lot last week, and I stayed off of them. There was 2 of the late games that I did like, and I would have won both, but I ended up not betting either of them. I stayed off all of the late games until Sunday night last week, and I think this will probably be another one of those spots because I like the Raiders again here. I like the turmoil that's going on. I like the Devontae Adams isn't going to play another game talk and all that other stuff. Oh, he's going to play. He's going to score like 2 touchdowns in this thing. It's going to be, one of those type of games. And, Bo Nix at home seems to be worse than he is on the road. I'm gonna take the Raiders in this one. I think they win it outright, probably pretty easy.
Fair. Big Al, how you feeling?
Well, I'm going to join Mitch. Mitch and I have been on, I think, mostly the same teams this week. This is a game where I want to go against Denver after pulling off that huge upset as a 7.5 point road dog, against the Jets. The Broncos are now 3-18 ATS, including 0-11 ATS as a favorite when they were playing at home off an ATS win and up against a 500 or better foe. So I'm going to take Las Vegas here plus the 2.5.
I just sat here and thought about it. All the rookies are favored this week with expectations. I think this week I'm just fading rookies with expectations. I'm fading Caleb Williams. I'm fading Jaden Daniels, and I'm fading Bo Nix. That's how it goes. Matter of fact, we're going to go ahead and put them in an early week parlay. The rookie parlay. I kind of like a lot of what Mitch said there. I don't think Devontae Adams plays in this game, however, though. I don't think. And he may be traded by the time this game kicks off Sunday. But I still think that has the Raiders a little undervalued in this spot. The Broncos, I'm just not a huge believer in them right now. And they very well may win this game, but I wouldn't this game right here has off number, funky game, late, probably a 2-point conversion style game. Like, this is that game for me, in my opinion. Late window, early, ugly game. This is going to be that one. And I much rather have the points in my back pocket in that style game. So not my best explanation on a game I've done before, but some of these NFL games, that's how they shape out in the end. So I think it's just an ugly one. I want the points in my back pocket with the Raiders.
Sounds like a gut feeling.
I love my gut feeling. We have another division battle. This time, we're in Cali, where the San Francisco 49ers are taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Big Al McMorty last week, Cardinals, hey, they got busted up. They busted up my parlay and all, man. They treated me ugly. They're getting over a touchdown this week. Do I put them on the do not bet list or do I take them?
Oh, I don't think we ever put any team on the do not bet list. I think you have to always keep your options open. Yeah, I mean, one team off the double-digit win, the other team off the double-digit loss. The Cardinals losing by 28 as a 3.5-point home favorite. As you said, it doesn't get much more ugly than that. San Francisco off a 17-point win and cover against the New England Patriots. So I'm definitely going to take Arizona here. When you take a look at how road underdogs off double-digit upset losses have done, going back to 1980, over the last 45 years, they've covered 63% versus division foes who are off double-digit wins. So that bodes well for Arizona. We've talked all season about how teams have done as big underdogs this year when teams are getting 5.5 points or more. 3-2 last week. You keep waiting for it to cool off. They just keep winning. For the season now, 16-4 ATS, 10-10 straight up. I like Arizona plus a 7.5. I wouldn't be surprised if they did win this game straight up.
Hey, I know I joked about putting them on the do not bet list, and if they don't cover this touchdown and a hook, they might officially be on the do not bet list, but they're not there yet, and I have to bet Arizona in this game as well. And I think this is a great game to take them outright on the money line. It's just a great overreaction spot. They just were flat last week. Let's just call a spade a spade. We see that sometimes in the NFL. But teams sometimes come back and play an amazing game the very next week. The Cardinals still have a ton of talent over there, and I think this is a great buy low spot on them. The Niners are still banged up, missing some of their best key players. I laid the points with the Niners last week. I thought it was a good spot for them to beat up on a team, especially coming off the loss from a week ago. But in this one, Cardinals plus the touchdown and the hook is where I want to be, especially in division battle. Cardinals looking for a bounce back after back-to-back bad weeks. Give me Arizona. Mitch, how you feeling?
I have an old system that I used with the 49ers. I didn't bet this game last week. I didn't touch these afternoon spots, but, the old system that we used last year that was just ever so effective. If Deebo Samuel plays, we take the 49ers. If he doesn't play, we take the other team. He played last week. They covered. He hasn't played in a lot of the other games. They didn't cover. He's playing this week. They're going to cover. I'm going to take the 49ers. It really is that simple. He is their best player, and, McCaffrey might get all the ink or whatever, but it is Deebo Samuel that makes it all work.
Next game up, we're still in Cali. We're in LA this time, though. We got the Los Angeles Rams at home at the crib with the Green Bay Packers coming in. We saw Jordan Love return to action last week. Hey, don't get mad at me. Don't shoot the messenger. This is just the truth. Jordan Love, 0-2. Skinny Malik, 2-0. Hey, I'm just saying. That's the truth of the matter. Does Jordan Love get his first win of the season in this one? Probably. Do I feel comfortable laying the 3? Not really, but that's where the line is currently, and it's probably where it's going to stay. I'm going to lean towards Green Bay, but we're probably headed for a push in this football game. I think player for player, man for man, roster for roster, Green Bay is the better football team, and I think as the season progresses, they're going to get better. I think the Rams have one of the worst rosters in the league right now. I just think Sean McVay's so good of a head coach, you can never typically count the Rams out. But I think in this one, we saw the Green Bay Packers get it going second half last week, and I think they kind of keep some of that momentum rolling forward into this one. Coach LaFleur has kind of earned my trust. He's one of the more profitable head coaches since he's entered the league. Again, I think the Packers are the better football team. 9 times out of 10, we're probably headed for a push. A walk-off Packers win is probably what we're looking at here. But I do think the Packers are the better team. I would lean on them laying the 3. Mitch, how you feel?
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to take the Rams. I just think the Packers are just terrible, man. I watched them last week, and it was just a really tough watch. I thought, they were actually my top play of the week. I went 5-1 in the NFL last week, and the Packers were my 1. So, they're not on my do not bet list. They're on I hate your guts list, and I think it's not going to wear off any. It's too soon. It really is. It's just too soon. I don't really feel like laying the points, on the road in the dome with a team that with a quarterback that can't cover a point spread. The Rams are good game, bad game, good game, bad game. The Packers offense is just. I think the numbers don't tell the whole story, and the Rams defense is terrible. So why is the line only where it is? I'm going to take the Rams. I think that they pass on them. Keep it close enough. Find a way.
Fair. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't. Like I said, we're probably headed for a push, but it wouldn't shock me. Big Al.
Well, I mean, McVay and LaFleur, they're the closest to friends, and I'm aware that McVay has been dominated by LaFleur. The Rams are now 0-4 straight up in ATS versus Green Bay when these two teams have both been on the sidelines. Then the other crazy stat is Green Bay's now covered 10 straight games versus the Rams. Still, Mitch mentioned the Rams being kind of like, good one week, bad the next week, et cetera. And that kind of like, I was going to kind of touch on that. The Rams have had a dichotomy since McVay's been hired as head coach. Between how they do off wins and how they do off losses. When LA has won its previous game, it tends to play relatively poorly its next game. It's gone 34-40 ATS. But when the Rams are off a straight up loss, then they tend to bounce back and play better the next game. They're 25-18-3 ATS off a straight up loss. So last week they lost by 6 to the Bears. I'm going to take the home underdog Rams here.
They didn't cover against the Bears. I just can't trust them.
and they beat the 49ers. I mean, this is what the Rams do.
This is who
they are. NFL, they took the Lions to overtime. It could have easily gone either way.
Yes.
Could have easily gone either way.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, they win the coin toss, they kick a field goal, they cover. It really is that much. Even if they lose the game, they cover. If they win the coin toss and kick a field goal, they cover.
Next game up, we head to Seattle, with the Seahawks coming off their first L of the season. They're at home, favored by a pretty decent number. Giants, coming off extended rest. They played on Thursday last week. Mitch, who you liking this football game?
It just seems almost too easy the way the Seahawks are playing. And, I know that they didn't get it done against the Lions on the other night, but I think that they kind of hung in there good enough on the road. Another one of those situations where I really think the home field factored. And I think probably a different situation in Seattle. Giants are just so hit and miss. Oh, man, it's like you just don't know what you're going to get week to week. But, Neighbor's certainly developing into a reliable target here. I don't know. It's one of these games that I think Seattle wins, but probably, by 2 or 3 or something. Because they're that type of team, and I think the Giants find a way to lose, but I think they still cover.
Fair, really fair point. Big Al, how you feel?
Well, the Giants come into this game off 4 straight unders to start the season. Last week they lost 20-15 to the Cowboys. That game went under the total of 45.5 by 10.5 points. This game has the over/under installed at 43.5, so 2 points lower than what the Cowboys was last week. But if you take a look at how teams do off 4 straight unders, when the over/under line was 44 points or less, they tend to go over in those games. The over has gone 452 and 393 since 1980. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going to take the over.
And I'm going to take the Giants plus the points. The book's still out for me on this Seattle football team. It is. As I explained last week, I think they benefited from the lightest schedule to start the season. Broncos catching rookie Bo Nix's first game of his NFL career. Then, on the road against arguably the worst team in the league, New England Patriots, who took you guys to overtime. And then you got Skylar Thompson and the Miami Dolphins at the week after losing their starting quarterback. They had a really light schedule. And then last week they played a really good football team in the Lions and failed to cover and got 42 points put on them. I think this game is going to be quite high scoring as well. And the Giants, I think they're improved. I do. I think they're improved. They're still the Giants. They're still not going anywhere. They're still not a great football team. But I think they're improved. And I think as long as Daniel Jones can continue to not turn the football over, honestly, I think they have a legitimate chance to win this game outright. We saw them go on the road and beat Cleveland. I think they can go on the road and beat, right now, in my opinion, still an overrated and overvalued Seattle Seahawks team. I want to attack the plus money and have the points in my back pocket here with the G-Men. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Sunday Night Football. Two historic franchises, man, for the first time meet on Sunday Night Football. I thought that was pretty interesting. These two teams have never met on Sunday Night Football. But here we go. We got my favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, out on the road facing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers, 2.5-point home favorites. Big Al McMorty, what you like in this football game?
Oh, gosh. Jay, did I ever tell you this stat? Dallas has now lost 12 straight road games versus opponents that had a winning record this season and made the playoffs the previous season. They're now 0-12 straight up their last 12 and 1-11 ATS.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. But sometimes one has to go against these trends. Eventually, Dallas is going to win a game against a good team, and I think this is the time, and I'm going to take Dallas plus the points.
Man, sometimes you just got to look at the results and call a spade a spade. Over the last couple seasons, my Cowboys on the road just haven't been that team. And at home is where they've flexed their muscles and have been dominant. Start this season, it's been the complete opposite. Both of our wins have been on the road, and both our L's have been at home. I'm not switching up on the formula. I know my team's banged up this week, missing two of our best defensive players in DeMarcus Lawrence and possibly going to be without Micah Parsons. But I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys here in this football game. I'm going to take them straight up on the money line on Sunday Night Football as well. Justin Fields, I think, is where this conversation lies. I don't trust him. I don't. I know many of you may look at the stats last week. A lot of you may look at your fantasy football leagues from a week ago and say, man, what a hell of a game Justin Fields played last week. But if you actually watch the football game, he's the reason that team ultimately was in the position that they were in. I just think the Cowboys are the better football team, and I think this passing attack is by far the best passing attack that Pittsburgh has seen thus far this season. I know their pass rush is probably their best aspect of this football team, but the Cowboys do a lot of quick passing game as well. I think the Cowboys will be able to overcome this week, especially on Sunday Night Football. This is usually where the Cowboys prevail. I'm just going to take the team who I think is the better football team, and that's the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion. Give me Cleveland. I mean, not Cleveland. Give me Dallas. I'm going to take them straight up on the money line. Mitch.
Need like the big red tape across the bottom. Breaking news, Jay Briggs picks Cowboys. I think that, for me looking at this one, Justin Fields, I couldn't believe like on Monday's show that Costi was talking about Justin Fields and his numbers and whatever fantasy. I don't play fantasy football, so I don't know. But I watched that game, and I mean, we did the halftime show of it, and Justin Fields was just terrible. I mean, he was I thought for sure they were going to bench him and put Russell Wilson in. I mean, that was really the talk of the halftime show. He was that bad. And his fumble, and not just the fumble, but the reaction to the fumble by Justin Fields is what ultimately cost them the game. It's like he was terrible. It's like the ball falls on the ground. He doesn't even try and fall on it. He doesn't try and pick it up. He basically leans over on the ball, has two hands on it. The Colt players just laughed and slapped the ball out of his hand and just fell on it. I mean, that's all that happened in that one. I think we're going to have a quarterback controversy in Pittsburgh, and that's never good news. And now they're talking about Devontae Adams also in Pittsburgh, and they wanted Ayuk. They want Devontae Adams, and it's like I don't think you're going to convince Devontae Adams to go there and play with Justin Fields. I mean, it's just going to be very, very difficult because Devontae Adams apparently is I don't know. You never used to see this in the NFL where players had a say into where they were going. It's like a guy complained like Devontae Adams. Yeah, you want to complain? Who's the worst team in the league? All right, we'll send you to Denver. Have a good time.
Then
It's
you
like
Jacksonville.
yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of places you go. Yeah, go play with Deshaun. It's gonna be a good time in Cleveland. It's like that's what they used to do to those guys. But apparently Devontae Adams has a say. Since he is commanding a second round draft choice for him. Maybe they should do it like the NBA. Where you get like 6 second rounders or something. But the thing is that I just think the Steelers, they have a great defense. The Cowboys without DeMarcus Lawrence don't have quite the pass rush that they normally have, but I think they're going to be good enough in this game. I'm going to take the Cowboys.
Last game of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Monday Night Football. We got the defending champs still unbeaten. They're laying 5.5 in Arrowhead with New Orleans coming into town. Mitch, do the Chiefs stay unbeaten? And do they cover the point spread, more importantly?
Well, I think that, we saw Chris Jones kind of make some plays last week, and that's always bad news for everybody else when he starts to really get into the game and be the guy that makes the actual plays. But I think at the same time, the Saints, while their offense isn't quite what it was, and they did take the loss last week, they're competing and they can put points on the board. And, we saw, they're definitely with Taysom Hill in, they're way better than they are with him out. He's kind of like the Deebo Samuel of the Saints. It's like
1,000%. It's crazy how night and day it is with him on and off the field.
Yeah, it's like he creates this other, element, and it's like it's tough to, because there's not a linebacker in the league that can really cover him, and I think that's the story with that. And it's he's way faster than a linebacker, and it's deceptive. But he's always been like that. He was that way in college, and the Saints just aren't afraid to just continue to boringly rush the football. And they have, Olave was certainly, looking pretty good last week as well, catching balls. So I think the Saints definitely going in the right direction. The Chiefs been the beneficiary of some tremendously horrific calls. Losing Rice also not going to help the Chiefs kind of back to where they were. I like Worthy. I think he's the best draft choice they've had in a while. He fits the system. Travis Kelce, it's nice to see that he's just stinking it up this year, and he should, maybe he'll just go away, right? But the thing is that, I think the Saints hang in there enough. The Chiefs are not a good cover team. They get a lousy call here and there, and that's only going to last so long, too. I like the Saints in this one with the points, at least with the points. I think a mild shot at the upset, but it's going to take it's going to take an act of God.
Fair. Big Al McMorty, how you feeling?
Yeah, the Chiefs are not a good cover team, except that they do cover. It's crazy. They're so lucky. They're one of those teams that, if you try to go against them, it's just maddening. They get the cover against the Ravens when the guy's out by eighth of an inch, in the back of the end zone. They then didn't get the cover against the Bengals, but then they get the cover against the Falcons when they blow the pass interference call in the end zone, where the guy, got, interfered with by Kansas City's defense. Then last week they cover the spread against the closing line. The line was 7.5, came down to 6.5. They win by 7. So the Chiefs are just one of those teams. Now they're favored by 5.5. We mentioned earlier how the underdogs at 5.5 or more points have done this season, going 16-4. But I've got another stat. You take a look at how Andy Reid has done when he is up against a team with a better offense. And the New Orleans Saints are averaging 31.75 points per game. Kansas City's averaging 23.0. So the Saints are 8.75 points per game better with a scoring offense. But Andy Reid is now 13-0 with a push ATS his last 14 when his opponent has had a scoring offense that was 4.9 points or more. So, he just is a really good coach. He knows how to stop these high-octane offense teams. I can't go against Andy Reid. I can't go against him on Monday night. I'm going to lay the 5.5.
Welcome to the dark side, Big Al McMorty. I'm on the Chiefs, man. As I said all season, I think they're going to three-peat. I think they're the best team in the league. I agree with Mitch. Losing Rashee Rice is a pretty big blow. I did see this week, though, they probably didn't lose him for the season. I know many feared it was an ACL tear. He was able to avoid that, so he may just be out like 4 to 5 weeks. So we'll see him again this season. But, man, we already seen in this league what happens when you pair up the best head coach with the best quarterback. Like, we've seen this story before. And magic happens. And I think that's what we have here. We have the best quarterback in the league with the best head coach in the league. And magic happens. They didn't cover last week, depending on the line you got. I bet it early. They didn't cover. But if you got closing line, they did cover. The Chiefs, I think, are just better than many of the teams they play. And the Saints, they started the year off with a bang, but they're starting to really remind me again of the Saints we've come to know and love. Like, they just shoot themselves in the foot in positions that they shouldn't. The Saints should probably be unbeaten right now. They had no business losing to the Eagles, and they had no business losing last week. But here we are. And I think that's where the Chiefs don't lose those games, and I attribute that to their head coach, Andy Reid. He's really good in situationally. The Saints always seem to lose those games, and I attribute that to their head coach, Dennis Allen. So, just is what it is sometimes, man. There's levels to this shit at every level, at everything, and I think this is just one of those where the Chiefs are just better. I'm going to lay the points with Kansas City, as I think they're poised to go on another deep playoff run. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate each and every one of you that continue to tune in and watch this video. That concludes another week of Picks from the DawgHouse NFL edition. Mitch, Big Al McMorty, thank y'all for joining me. See y'all next week. We out here. Peace.